You know, when we picture a spiritual awakening, the cultural image we have is usually this sudden lightning bolt moment of clarity.
Oh, absolutely. Like a movie scene.
Right. A guy is sitting cross-legged on a remote mountaintop somewhere. He takes one deep, intentional breath, and boom, instant enlightenment.
Yeah.
The heavens open up, the ego dissolves, and he is just forever changed in a single weekend.
It's treated almost like a high-yield transaction, you know?
Right.
You put in the breathwork coins, you pull the lever of intention, and suddenly all of life's existential problems are solved right there on your living room floor.
Exactly.
I mean, it is a highly marketable narrative.
Highly marketable and highly clickable. But welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking our stack of source materials, specifically a deeply fascinating critique by an energy healer and advanced teacher known as the Blind Yogi, and we're using them to dissect this massive internet trend.
It's a really important one to look at.
Yeah, it really is. Because our mission today is to figure out why the internet-friendly version of a DIY Kundalini awakening isn't just a statistical myth, but a potentially terrifying trap for your nervous system.
And the expert guiding our understanding today is Osman. And when we say advanced teacher, we are talking about someone with nearly 50 years of intense personal practice.
Wow. 50 years.
Yeah, and 44 years of teaching experience on top of that. This is someone who has spent a lifetime observing the actual mechanics of human energy.
Which brings us to the catalyst for our deep dive today. Osman recently offered a critique of a viral video. And in this specific video, a man claims he achieved a massive, sudden spiritual transformation.
Right.
He describes feeling this serpent-like energy spiraling violently up his spine, totally transforming his consciousness overnight.
Yep, the classic description.
And the kicker of his entire story, the part that really gets people, is that he claims he did this purely through his own solo breathwork.
Right.
He explicitly dismisses the multiple gurus and teachers he had visited prior to this moment. He's essentially telling his audience they were a complete waste of time.
He is selling the ultimate DIY awakening. He's basically telling his followers that he cracked the code on his own, bypassed the traditional gatekeepers, and just breathed his way into a higher state of consciousness.
Yeah.
And Osman, after listening to this, he steps in to clarify that this narrative represents a fundamental misunderstanding of how spiritual and physiological groundwork actually operates.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if this guy genuinely felt the breakthrough, like if his nervous system actually lit up during his breathwork session in his room, why does an expert like Osman take such issue with the narrative? I mean, is he saying the guy is lying about the experience?
That is actually the most interesting part of Osman's critique. He doesn't deny the man's experience at all.
Oh, he doesn't.
No, not at all. He fully believes this individual had a profound and real Kundalini awakening. The danger lies in the man's complete misattribution of the cause.
I see.
Osman argues that achieving a full awakening entirely on your own, starting from zero and just setting an intention in your bedroom, is roughly as likely as winning the lotto.
Right.
It is not physically impossible, but it is statistically absurd to bank on it as a replicable method.
So, if the breathwork didn't magically cause the awakening out of nowhere, what actually happened? I imagine Osman has a different explanation for what those dismissed gurus were actually doing.
He does. Osman points directly to those very teachers the man claimed were useless. From Osman's perspective, those gurus didn't fail at all. They did the invisible, structural, heavy lifting.
Okay.
They are the ones who, in his words, planted the seed.
Planted the seed. Let's explore the mechanics of that, because planting a seed sounds a bit mystical, and I want to make sure we ground this for you listening.
Sure.
How exactly does an advanced teacher prep a student's system if they aren't actively giving them, like, a secret breathing technique or a magic mantra?
It comes down to the physiological and energetic reality of what Osman calls the aura.
The aura.
Yeah. A true master who has spent decades refining their nervous system and their spiritual state possesses a highly organized, powerful, energetic field, or aura.
Okay.
When a student sits in that presence, even if absolutely no words are exchanged, that environment alone begins to interact with the student's system. It's a form of deep resonance.
So it is almost like nervous system co-regulation, but on a much more profound scale.
Exactly.
Like when a completely calm, grounded person walks into a room full of panicked people and just their baseline presence starts to lower the heart rates of everyone else in the room. The student's chaotic nervous system naturally begins to entrain to the master's highly organized frequency.
That is a brilliant way to understand it. Yeah. The master isn't forcing anything onto the student. The sheer coherence of the teacher's aura subtly reduces the student's internal resistance.
Wow.
It begins cleansing blockages in the subtle energy channels. So this man in the video, he visited multiple teachers over a period of time. And with every visit, his system was being primed, layer by layer, blockage by blockage, completely beneath his conscious awareness.
It makes me think of a very specific analogy. It's like a homeowner who wants to knock down a massive, solid brick wall in his house.
All right, I like where this is going.
For years, he hires different specialized contractors to come in with sledgehammers. They bash away at the structural integrity of this wall, cracking the mortar, weakening the foundation, creating microfractures across the entire surface.
Yeah.
Then their shift ends, and they leave. The homeowner walks up to the deeply compromised wall with a tiny little tack hammer, taps one loose brick, and the entire wall comes crashing down.
Perfect. Yes.
He immediately turns his camera on and tells the internet, "Look what I did all by myself with this tiny hammer. Those sledgehammer guys didn't do anything." He is entirely blind to the invisible structural damage that made his final tap effective.
I love that analogy because it perfectly frames Osman's view on breathwork. The gurus were the sledgehammers breaking down the deep internal resistance.
Right.
Breathwork is indeed the final catalyst, the pivot that can accelerate the process and trigger the collapse of that wall. Osman entirely agrees that breathwork is powerful, but it is just that final tap.
And we should clarify here that Osman isn't against breathwork at all, right? He just views it as one component of a much larger engine.
Yes, exactly. Osman emphasizes that breathwork must be anchored by meditation and, crucially, hatha yoga.
Ah, hatha yoga.
Right. And we have to be clear about what hatha yoga means in this context, because in the West, we often reduce it to, a light stretching routine you do at the gym.
Right, it's not just about getting more flexible hamstrings.
Yeah.
If we follow Osman's logic, hatha yoga is actually conditioning the hardware of the physical body.
Yes.
It upgrades the nervous system so it can actually handle the massive electrical load of a kundalini surge. If this energy is like running 1,000,000 volts through your body, hatha yoga is what thickens your internal wiring so you don't literally short circuit when the power gets turned on.
Precisely. It is systemic preparation, which leads us directly to the terrifying reality of what happens when someone skips that preparation.
Yeah.
If breathwork is that final sledgehammer tap, and it does work to bring down the wall all at once, what happens to the person standing unprepared underneath it?
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the internet loves to sell the glow-up of a spiritual awakening, right? The profound peace and the deep knowing. But Osman paints a very stark picture of the dark side of this trend.
Very stark.
If you force this energy awake suddenly, going cold turkey without the upgraded wiring or an expert guide, the physiological and psychological fallout sounds absolutely devastating.
It is devastating because it overwhelms the brain's fundamental capacity to process reality.
Wow.
We all walk around with pent-up emotional baggage, deeply buried psychological distress, and unresolved trauma. In a normal state, the subconscious mind acts as a vault, keeping that material safely tucked away so we can function in our daily lives.
And a forced, full-power Kundalini awakening essentially blows the vault doors off their hinges.
Yes. It forces decades of suppressed subconscious material into the conscious mind simultaneously. It is an unmitigated explosion of raw emotion.
The conscious mind simply isn't built for that. I mean, if I try to process a single traumatic event, it can take months of therapy.
Right.
If my brain tries to categorize and process a lifetime of baggage in a single Tuesday afternoon because I forced my energy channels open, I imagine that doesn't just feel like a panic attack.
Yeah.
That sounds like the mechanism for a complete mental fracture.
And that is exactly what Osman warns about. The surge is so intensely overwhelming that the individual risks outright psychosis.
Wait, really?
Psychosis. Yes. This isn't a metaphor for feeling stressed.
Yeah.
Osman states that people risk permanent institutionalization.
Oh, my God.
They can end up committed to a psychiatric facility because they completely lose their grip on consensus reality. From the outside, it looks indistinguishable from a severe schizophrenic break.
That is terrifying.
It is. And the person becomes a prisoner to psychiatric care because their internal world has entirely collapsed under the weight of their own unprocessed trauma.
That reframes this entire conversation. The gurus aren't gatekeepers trying to hoard some mystical secret. They were essentially hazardous materials experts trying to keep you from blowing out your own psychological foundation.
Exactly.
And the danger isn't just mental, is it? Osmond details a very specific physical risk regarding how this energy travels.
He does. He describes the phenomenon of stuck energy.
Stuck energy.
Yeah. When Kundalini awakens, it travels up the spinal column, moving through the major energy centers. In a properly prepared system, it flows smoothly. But if you force the pressure, it can shoot violently up to the head and hit a bottleneck. It gets physically trapped in the skull.
If that massive surge of raw kinetic energy shoots straight up the spine, it gets bottlenecked in the head, the internal pressure has to be astronomical.
It is.
I can't imagine you just pop an aspirin and go to work. That has to be a systemic overload
Yep.
where you literally cannot function.
You can't. Osmond explains that this results in severe, debilitating headaches and extreme psychological distress. You lose the ability to easily walk around, to communicate naturally, to hold down a job. Your entire system is redlining.
Just redlining permanently.
Yes, and the truly terrifying part is that the individual rarely has the energetic strength or the knowledge to lower that energy back down to its resting place.
So they're just stuck vibrating at maximum capacity in a state of constant pain.
Without an advanced practitioner to actively step in and help draw that energy back down the spine, it remains trapped. Osmond notes that it can take decades for a person's nervous system to adapt to that blockage on its own.
Decades. You try to hack your way to enlightenment over a long weekend, and you end up with a 20-year migraine and a psychiatric hold.
Pretty much.
It makes total sense why Osmond's own method as a teacher is radically different from these quick-fix breathwork routines. If forcing the door open is a recipe for psychosis, we need to look at how Osmond safely guides his own students.
Right. Osmond's entire methodology revolves around clearing the path before turning on the water.
Okay.
He states that before he imparts any of the actual awakening methods to a student, he does the heavy lifting himself. He actively awakens their spirituality and physically unblocks their major energy centers along the spinal column.
So by the time the student begins the breathwork or the meditation, the pipes are already clear. They don't have to face the violent eruption of emotional release because the pressure valves have already been tested and opened by the teacher.
Yes, exactly. And Osmond uses a brilliant visualization to explain how the energy itself is then managed. He focuses on the literal translation of the word kundalini, which means coiled up.
Coiled up. So instead of a generic pool of energy, we should picture a tightly wound coil resting at the base of the spine.
Exactly. Osmond teaches a method of uncoiling that energy in concentric circles.
Concentric circle.
Yeah. Picture a series of rings nested inside one another. The smallest, weakest ring is in the dead center. The largest, most powerful ring forms the outer edge. Osmond's safety protocol targets only that smallest, innermost circle first.
Oh, I get it. It's like turning a dimmer switch, or even like lifting weights.
Right.
You don't just walk into the gym on day one and try to squat 500 pounds. You would literally crush your spine. You start with the empty bar. You start with 5 pounds.
Exactly.
You let a tiny bit of resistance in. If your form starts to break down, you rack the weight. You let the muscle adapt to that light load before you ever touch the heavier plates.
That analogy captures the exact physiological adaptation Osmond is talking about. By uncoiling only the smallest inner circle, the student releases a very small, entirely manageable surge of energy.
Right.
Because the surge is operating on low power, the student inherently possesses the strength to command it. They can bring it back down at will.
They are building capacity. The nervous system experiences that, say, 10% surge, and over days or weeks, it naturally attunes to it. The biological hardware adapts to the new electrical load.
And once the body is fully comfortable with that innermost circle, the practice naturally progresses to the next, slightly larger ring.
Right.
A little more energy rises, a slightly deeper level of subconscious emotion is released, but it is always kept within the boundaries of what the student's current wiring can process. They are gaining strength in how to control it step by step.
So by the time they reach the final stage of the process,
By the time that largest outermost circle uncoils and the full immense power of the Kundalini surges through the body, the student is fully equipped to manage it.
wow.
If it gets stuck in the head at that point, it isn't a crisis because they have spent months or years developing the precise internal mechanics to command that energy and lower it back down safely. The process happens so organically that the student doesn't experience any violent psychological upheaval.
Which brings us to the practical application of all this for you listening right now. Because when we talk about full power energetic surges altering your state of consciousness, it sounds incredible, but it also sounds entirely incompatible with, filing your annual taxes, attending budget meetings, or doing the grocery shopping.
Right, the everyday stuff.
So what does this all mean? There's this pervasive cultural assumption that achieving this level of spiritual evolution requires you to quit your job, abandon modern society, and move into a cave.
It was a very persistent myth. But Osman himself serves as the ultimate counterargument to the idea that spiritual growth requires isolation.
How so?
Well, over his 44 years of teaching, he has reached the highest level of samadhi, a profound absolute state of meditative consciousness, 5 separate times.
5 times. That's huge.
Yes. And yet, he deliberately chose not to become an isolated monk. He runs businesses and maintains a highly active role in the regular world.
Wait, hold on. Let me push back on that because the classic textbook definition of reaching a profound state like samadhi usually involves the complete dissolution of the ego and total detachment from worldly desires.
True.
How does someone achieve the highest level of spiritual detachment 5 times, but still care about profit margins, business logistics, and paying employees? That seems completely contradictory.
It seems contradictory until we redefine what detachment actually means in this framework.
Okay.
Detachment doesn't mean non-participation. Osman proves that you can operate a business, engage with commerce, and manage logistics without your core identity being tied to the outcome. If the business fails, his ego doesn't shatter because his foundation is rooted in his spiritual awareness, not his profit margin.
That makes a lot of sense.
He chose to remain in the world to be a living, breathing example that regular people can engage in this practice safely. You do not have to abandon your family, forsake your income, or completely upend your diet to evolve. You can maintain a balanced, highly functional modern life.
But this is a crucial point he makes. Even though you don't have to run away to a monastery, your life does undeniably change as you undergo this controlled, slow uncoiling.
Oh, absolutely.
The change just doesn't happen through forceful rejection. It happens because your internal frequency naturally shifts.
It is a subtle but profound realignment of your environment. As your internal energy evolves step by step, the external world begins to reflect that new baseline.
Right.
The people you surround yourself with, the social circles you run in, they begin to alter. Relationships that no longer add value, or people who are anchored to a frequency of drama or stagnation naturally fade away.
Yeah.
You rarely have to initiate a dramatic falling out. The connection simply ceases to resonate.
And it's not just the physical people you hang out with. There was a detail in Osman's breakdown that I found absolutely fascinating because it's so relevant to how we live today.
Yeah, the media aspect.
Exactly. He noted that as your consciousness levels up, the actual media you consume changes right alongside it.
The digital environment shifts just as much as the physical relationships.
Yes. He specifically calls out modern media like podcasts and influencers. He says that as you evolve, the shows you used to listen to religiously, the ones you thought were so profound, edgy, or amazing, suddenly start to feel incredibly boring or superficial.
Right.
You tune in for your morning commute, and you realize you've completely outgrown the conversation. The topics that used to grip your attention just feel flat because you are vibrating at a different level of awareness. You naturally end up seeking out new voices, new art, and new connections that align with where your internal coil is currently sitting.
It's a beautiful, peaceful indicator of true growth. You aren't angrily rejecting your past interests or judging the people who still enjoy them. You are simply outgrowing the clothes that no longer fit your frame.
So, to synthesize the journey we've taken through Osman's insights today, that viral, highly clickable idea of the sudden DIY awakening triggered just by breathing hard in your bedroom is largely a dangerous myth.
Very dangerous.
It willfully ignores the invisible, structural heavy lifting done by experienced teachers who prep the nervous system. Trying to force that process cold turkey without that preparation is essentially playing Russian roulette with your own psychology, risking severe long-term mental and physical distress.
Yep.
True, lasting spiritual growth happens through that incremental, controlled uncoiling. Testing the dimmer switch slowly so your mind and body can safely adapt to the current.
This raises an important question for all of us, especially living in a culture that is utterly obsessed with quick-fix life hacks and instant optimization. Are we willing to respect the complex, hidden mechanics of our own minds?
It's a great point.
Seeking expert guidance isn't about submitting to someone else's control. It's about asking someone to hold the flashlight while you navigate a very dark, very powerful basement.
Asking someone to hold the flashlight so you don't stumble and blow the main fuse.
Yeah.
I love that framework. And for you listening, we want to leave you with a thought to mull over today as you go about your normal routine. Think about that subtle shift in frequency Osman described. If a true, gradual spiritual awakening naturally causes you to peacefully lose interest in your current environment, from the people you spend your weekends with to the media you stream on your phone, take an honest look at your life right now.
Yeah.
If your own inner coil were to safely expand to the next level today, what specific parts of your everyday life do you think would quietly, naturally fall away?
It is a deeply revealing question to ask yourself.
Keep uncoiling, and we'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.